The bottle of champagne you bought for New Year's Eve, the one that cost you $40, $60, maybe $100, almost certainly came from land that now sells for over 2 million euros per hectare. Not a typo, 2 million euros for a single hectare of French farmland. And a handful of families, led by one man in Paris, controls more of it than anyone else on Earth. This is hungry empire. By the end of this, you will never look at a champagne bottle the same way. Because what you are holding is not just a drink. It is a piece of the most legally protected, most expensive, most carefully structured agricultural system ever built. Here is what most people assume. Champagne is a French thing, a national treasure, spread across many proud small producers. The reality is different. One company, LVMH, the luxury conglomerate run by Bernard Arnault, owns Moët Chandon, Dom Pérignon, Veuve Clicquot, Krug, Ruinart, and Mercier. 6 of the most recognized champagne brands on the planet, inside a single corporate portfolio. By most industry estimates, LVMH accounts for roughly a quarter of all champagne sold globally, and dominates the premium end so completely that competitors are fighting over whatever margins remain at the top of the market. But here is the detail that stuck with me when I actually dug into how this system works. The brands are almost secondary. The real power is the dirt. Champagne, legally, specifically, the drink you know by that name, can only be made from grapes grown in a protected zone in northeastern France, covering roughly 84,000 acres. Every plot is mapped, registered, and governed by rules that go back to 1927. You cannot buy land outside that zone and start making champagne. You cannot replant vines on the wrong side of a boundary. The appellation is a wall, and inside that wall, the price of entry has become almost surreal. A hectare in the Côte de Blanc or the Montagne de Reims now trades at prices that rival prime Paris real estate. The houses are not just buying grapes, they are buying scarcity, legally enforced, geographically fixed scarcity. Put yourself in the position of a small grower standing at that boundary line. On one side, your family vineyard, worth a fortune simply because of where it sits. On the other, land that cannot legally produce what yours does, no matter how well it is farmed. That line, invisible on the ground, absolute in law, is where the Champagne Empire begins. The origins of that empire are older than the corporations. The Champagne region sits about 90 miles northeast of Paris, in a landscape of rolling chalk hills that trap cold air and stress the vines in exactly the right ways. Monks were making wine here in the early Middle Ages, and the region's sparkling wine, initially considered a flaw, the result of re-fermentation in the bottle, became fashionable among European aristocracy by the late 1600s. What turned it from a regional curiosity into a global luxury was not the wine itself, it was distribution. The great champagne houses of the 18th and 19th centuries, Moët, Veuve Clicquot, Krug, Perrier-Jouët, built export networks that reached the Russian imperial court, the British aristocracy, the American Gilded Age. They did not sell wine, they sold status, coded into a bottle. And they understood something most competitors missed. The bottle had to be consistent. Every glass of Veuve Clicquot Yellow Label had to taste like the last one, regardless of the harvest. That required buying grapes from hundreds of small farmers across the appellation, blending them with precision, and holding enormous reserves of aging wine to smooth out the differences between years. It required capital, cellars, and scale. The chalk beneath Reims provided the cellars. Under the city, there are an estimated 250 kilometers of tunnels carved into the rock, galleries that hold a constant 10 to 12 degrees Celsius year-round. Down there, right now, by industry estimates, roughly 1.5 billion bottles of champagne are aging in the dark. By those same estimates, around 2 years of global supply, sitting underground, maturing on its lees, waiting. The system that fills those cellars, and the pricing machine that empties them, is where the real story turns. Here is the part that does not make sense on the surface. Champagne grapes cost more than almost any other wine grape on earth. The harvest is labor-intensive, heavily regulated, and exposed to the brutal frosts and hail of northern France. Production takes years, not months. By every measure of cost, champagne should be an expensive niche product, not a global mass-market phenomenon. And yet, worldwide, roughly 300 million bottles are shipped in strong years. How? LVMH and the other large houses, Taittinger, Laurent Perrier, Lanson BCC, long ago refined a distribution model that separates the cost of making champagne from the price at which it is sold. A standard non-vintage bottle leaves the cellar at 18 to 25 euros. By the time it reaches a hotel minibar in Singapore or a nightclub table in Dubai, the same bottle can retail for 400 euros or more. The product has not changed. The context has. And the houses have spent 200 years building that context through sponsorships, through placement on Formula One podiums, through association with every moment in modern life that is supposed to feel like an occasion. What is worth understanding about this system is that the luxury markup is not incidental to the business. It is the business. The growers need high grape prices to survive on land that costs millions per hectare. The houses need high retail prices to fund the inventory sitting underground for 2 years. The whole structure depends on the price never falling below a certain floor. And because the appellation is fixed and the land cannot expand, supply cannot surge to break the price. The scarcity is, in effect, permanent. It is worth asking directly, is that the market working as intended? Or is it something else? A legally protected geographic appellation, where a handful of large players hold significant pricing power, selling a product whose price is structurally insulated from competition. Not illegal, not secret, but worth thinking about when you are standing at the shop deciding between the champagne and the Prosecco. The Prosecco next to it on the shelf is, in many ways, the biggest competitive threat the champagne houses have faced in a generation. Italian sparkling wine, made from Glera grapes in the Veneto, can be produced at a fraction of the cost and scaled in ways champagne cannot. By the early 2020s, Prosecco was outselling champagne by volume in several major markets. The houses responded not by lowering prices, that would undermine the entire luxury positioning, but by doubling down on exclusivity. More prestige cuvées, more vintage releases, more Dom Pérignon, which retails at prices that make standard Moët look affordable. And then came the thing nobody in Epernay was fully prepared for: climate change. The Champagne region's cool northern climate is what gives the wine its signature acidity and tension. Warmer growing seasons have already shifted harvest dates earlier. Grapes that ripened in October a generation ago are now coming in during late August in some years. For now, warmer summers have actually improved consistency, reducing the number of truly difficult vintages. But projections beyond 2030 suggest that without adaptation, parts of the appellation could become too warm to reliably produce the style of wine that made Champagne famous. Here is what nobody expected. Some producers are quietly looking north. There are now sparkling wines made in southern England, in the same chalk geology that underlies Champagne, using the same grape varieties, producing results that by some accounts rival entry-level houses. They cannot call it Champagne. The appellation protects the name absolutely, but they are proof that the physical boundary of the empire may be more negotiable than the legal one. Will that rewrite the map? Comment yes or no. Because this is genuinely uncertain, and the answer will determine whether the €2 million hectare is still worth €2 million in 20 years. What is not uncertain is the present. The chalk cellars under Rams are full. The harvest is coming. Somewhere in a distribution warehouse, bottles bought for €20 at the cellar door are being priced at 80 for a retailer in London, 150 for a hotel in Tokyo, 400 for a club in Dubai. The same liquid, the same vintage. The price is not a reflection of the wine. It is a reflection of the empire built around it. Every bottle in every supermarket carries that story in its label. A geography that cannot be replicated. A corporate structure built around that scarcity. A legal framework that has held since 1927. The empire is not in France. It is in the rules. Look at the food around you. Every label hides a war, a fortune, a system engineered over generations to make sure the money flows one direction. We are coming for all of them. Tell us in the comments which food empire we should expose next. Your suggestions decide it. Follow Hungry Empire and watch the map redraw.